So today we're going to make a carrot cake. Now the version I do is slightly different to your standard carrot cake. I'm going to make the carrot cake sponge, and then the topping is usually a cream cheese or cream cheese and buttercream topping. I'm actually going to make a maple buttercream because personally I like it more. So it will be a standard buttercream but with some maple syrup mixed in. I think the flavours go really well with a carrot cake. So the full recipe is on the blog at www.howtomakecakes.co.uk. So the ingredients for the cake are as follows. Firstly, 150 grams of muscovado sugar. This is the dark muscovado sugar. We've got 3 eggs that I've already broken into the bowl. We've obviously got carrots, 175 grams of carrots. So I've peeled them first and then grated them. Then the fat we use for a carrot cake is oil. This is sunflower oil. You can sort of use sunflower or rapeseed oil. This is 175 millilitres. I'm going to put sultanas in. I've got 100 grams here. Some people like to add walnuts as well. I prefer just with sultanas. Flour, 175 grams of self-raising flour. Then we've got 1 teaspoon of bicarbonate of soda, 1 teaspoon of ground cinnamon, and half a teaspoon of ground nutmeg. And I'm actually going to use one of these silicone baking trays, which I don't normally like, but I've got this one, so I thought I would give it a go. This is an 8 centimetre by 8 centimetre square tray. Obviously you can just use a regular baking tray if you've got that. So with these silicone ones, it's important to put it on a metal baking sheet just so that it keeps its shape. So this recipe is actually, a lot of the time is measuring stuff out. Actually making it, it's fairly straightforward, and I'm not going to use a food mixer or food process. This is all done just with a wooden spoon and by hand. So the first thing we do is take the eggs, and we're going to add in the sugar, and we're going to add in the oil and just mix that all up together. So put that in, pour the oil in, and then just using your wooden spoon, just mix that together. So once you spend your time giving it a good beating, particularly with the muscovado sugar, you just want to check that all the big lumps have gone. And there's your liquid base. And then we're really just adding everything else to this. So next, just put in all your grated carrot. It does seem a lot, but when it cooks, it all sort of disappears down. So we add our carrots, we add our sultanas, and if you're using walnuts at this stage, we add those. Mix all of this in, and then we finally just sieve in all of our dry ingredients. So you've got your flour, your bicarbonate of soda, cinnamon, and the nutmeg, all through the sieve. And then we just mix all of that in, and that is your carrot cake mixture. So once you've stirred that all in, you've got a nice thick batter. I mean, it's less like a normal cake mix where you're desperate to put your finger in and taste it because there's a lot of carrot in it, but it does come out really nice. So then we just pour this straight into our baking tray, and as you can see, it fills it quite up. It does rise a bit, but the carrot all disappears, so it sort of melts that down. So we put this in. The oven is at 180 degrees centigrade. I don't like using the fan setting, so just a regular fan setting, a regular setting, not the fan setting. If you only have a fan setting, just knock it down to 170 or something. This will take about 40 to 45 minutes to cook, so it does take a while. So in the oven it goes. So the cake's been in the oven for about 45 minutes. I checked it after 40 and it wasn't quite ready. So now you can see it's quite springy. I'll just put a cake tester in and hopefully, yeah, that comes out completely clean. So that looks cooked. So best thing to do with these silicone trays, silicone baking tins, is actually just leave it to cool for about 10 minutes in the tray, and then we'll turn it out onto a cooling rack, and then once it's cooled we'll put the butter icing on the top. So once the cake has cooled down a bit in the silicone tray, hopefully it should come out nice and easily. So I just tend to put the cooling rack on that way, turn it upside down, and hopefully we'll just be able to peel this off. Yeah, I can feel it coming out there. So now we need to leave this to cool completely. A little bit did stick to the tin on mine, but we're gonna cover this with our buttercream, so that is less important, but it does need to be completely cold before we do that. So as I mentioned, there are, the traditional topping for a carrot cake is using cream cheese, and the normal way to do that would be to use a buttercream type mixture, but actually have maybe half butter and half cream cheese. Now, I'm not a great fan of cream cheese, so I'm making this just with buttercream and adding some maple syrup to give it a nice flavour. So in terms of butter, I'm using 175 grams of unsalted butter, which is nice and soft at room temperature. So if you were doing this with cream cheese, you would maybe have 100 grams of cream cheese, 75 grams of butter. Some people do it all with cream cheese. So you'd have 175 grams of cream cheese. In terms of icing sugar, double the amount, so 350 grams. I put it through a sieve before I put it in the bowl. And then I'm going to add some maple syrup, because I think it gives it a great flavour that really complements the cake. And I'm going to use about 3 tablespoons of that. So really all we're doing is beating all of this together. So with the butter, it should be nice and soft, but cut it into smaller pieces to mix in there. If it's not soft, then you want to add this first and just beat it up a bit to soften it. So all of the butter in there, and then we will add the maple syrup as well. So all of that in, and then the amount of maple syrup depends on the taste. You can put less in and then try it, see if you like it, but I'm suggesting about 1, 2, 3 tablespoons, and then we mix this all together. So I'm just going to use a electric hand whisk, which we must start very slowly to start with and then get faster. So what you'll find with buttercream is that it goes sort of breadcrumb-like, and then all of a sudden it comes together. So I think this is about to come together. Pick up the speed, and then suddenly it becomes like a buttercream, as it is now. So give that a good beating to mix everything in. So once that's all done, just get a spatula to get all of the icing sugar off. It should be pretty thick like this, but not have any lumps in it, so that we can then spread it on the top. So once the cake's cooled, put the cake on, I put it on the lid of a tin that I'm going to store it in, but you just need it on something solid rather than on the rack that's a bit wobbly. And then we have our buttercream to put on top. So the best way to do this is just using a palette knife, put it on and spread it on top. want to be quite generous with this. It's nice to have a thick amount of buttercream on top. So put it on and then just spread it flat. So once you've done that, you either can just leave it like that, or I have this little device with some serrated edges where you can just run it across and produce some lines like you often see on carrot cake. So just drag it along. So there we have our carrot cake with maple buttercream icing. The full recipe is on my blog at www.howtomakecakes.co.uk.